John's son was born in the same hospital as John. John can only dribble a basketball with his left hand and shoot with his right. Somehow, as a C student, he managed to land two very desirable jobs. First as a book reviewer with Booklist, where he was paid to read books and write about them, and now as a writer, where he gets paid to read books and write them for other people to read. His next novel is set in antebellum Alabama and involves werewolves. John is famous. I made up some of these things. Welcome, John Green.
I think that's my favorite introduction ever. And I wish that I were writing a novel set in antebellum Alabama about werewolves. That sounds like a good seller, but alas, I do not have the passion for werewolves. I wish I did. I would live in a nicer house. I want to thank you all for being here. Also, if any of y'all who are in the back want to sit, if you have an empty seat next to you, will you raise your hand? There's just the one. But if one of you would like to sit next to one from here, seems to be a very charming young woman, you can go right over there. Don't hesitate. I want to talk just a little before I read about why I write books and why I think that books are still relevant, even though I also work on the internet and my audience is very internet based. I like books. I always have, ever since I was a little kid. I was a C student, but I have landed very desirable jobs since then, by the grace of God. And I credit a lot of that to reading and to my lifelong relationship with books. Here's what I love about books as opposed to MySpace. Who am I kidding? No one's on MySpace. As opposed to Facebook and Twitter and World of Warcraft and that stupid new game where you kill 100,000 zombies. Left 4 Dead 2, or whatever it's called. What's it called? Left 4 Dead. Okay. If they haven't made a second one, rest assured they will. Books are, they don't mean anything until you get a hold of them. This is just meaningless scratches on a page. There's no way to translate this. I know that because when I look at the foreign editions of my books, I can't read them because I was a C student and I wasn't very good at French. And so I don't know how to translate the scratches on pages in different languages, but I do know how to translate these scratches on a page. And because that active translation is active, because the book does not exist as a story until I translate these meaningless scratches on a page into ideas in my head, I get to co-create the novel. I'm going to talk briefly about why I find that interesting in a second, but I think it's very important, so I want to underline it. When you watch TV, even when you watch top-notch TV shows like 2.5 Men, you are not co-creating that show. Like 2.5 Men does not need you in order to fully understand all of its complexities and subtleties. It's made stupidly on purpose, not to say that it's not funny, although I don't think it is, but if you do think it's funny, that's fine. But it's made stupid on purpose because it has to appeal to almost everyone. And you don't need a tremendous amount of sophistication. You don't need to bring much talent to 2.5 Men. And you don't even need to bring much to a great movie, and I love great movies, but you don't have to bring that much to... What was a good movie this year? I didn't really see any because I had this baby. Avatar. If you liked Avatar, I see you. I get it. It's not just about seeing, it's also about the soul. As long as you can get that level of metaphor, that seeing you is not just about physically seeing you, you can pretty much get all of Avatar. And because it's all there for you. The music tells you how to feel. And this is not a dig against Avatar, great movie. The music tells you how to feel. The visuals, which are stunning, welcome you into the world. That's a very different world from the world in which you live. It doesn't ask as much of me as a novel does, which is both why novels are in trouble and why they are ultimately so fulfilling to read, I think. Because it is truly, it doesn't exist. A novel doesn't exist until I read it. I'm going to get into whether that's true in a second. Just as a movie does exist, regardless of whether I watch it. Here's the other thing about being a person that I find really problematic and that really bothers me. Can you raise your hand if you've met me before? Okay. This might be boring for you. I am really troubled by the fact that I am stuck inside of this skin enclosure, and I have these eyes, and my eyes are the only eyes I ever get to have, and this body, unfortunately, is the only body I ever get to have. And you know, my sense of what the color blue denotes is the only sense of what the color blue denotes that I will ever get to have, and I have no idea what it is like to be you, which is not problematic in and of itself, except the problem is that you do a terrible job of imagining what it's like to be me, because you're so stuck imagining how interesting and complex you are that you never take the adequate amount of time necessary to understand how fascinating and wonderful and deep and complex I am, which is a huge problem. It's a big problem with girls. I used to have this problem with girls all the time when I was in high school and college. I would date girls and they would just completely fail to understand me complexly. And the fact that I was failing to understand them complexly meant nothing to me. In fact, when I was a kid, I believed with like a great and terrible certainty that I was the only real, true human being in the world, and that everyone else was an alien, and and that when I left a room, they would like take off their their human costumes, because they have very advanced costuming technology, and they would just be their alien selves, right? And they would watch like the alien news. I believe that the 11 o'clock news was the alien news because I was never allowed to stay up for it. And this wasn't sort of some boyish fantasy. I literally thought that this was true. And as I've gotten older, I have been struck by the fact that it kind of might be true. I mean, it's probably not true. You guys are probably all human beings, but there is no empirical evidence that you are all human beings, right? I don't have solid proof that you are a person, and if you turn to the person to your left, you do not have solid proof that that person is a person. You don't know. Someone just turned to their left and the other person turned to their right and they were looking at each other. Okay. That's a good moment for me.